am still grappling with this COVID infection. I think I'm going on day 18. I relapsed after initially getting better on the drug Paxlovid, but I think this new variant of Omicron is tricky. And anyway, but I'm fever-free and I'm cleared by employee health to go back to work, and I'm going to go back to work tomorrow. Yes, I can do it. I can do it. But I'm a little bit wobbly and feeling a little bit addled. And hey, what better time than to make a little video for you guys? I wanted to share a reading method that I really love called Revolving the Cards. It's a particularly great reading method when you're trying to explore an issue over time, or a card over time. Or some of the archetypal energies that card brings forward for you. So, as some of you already know, July 2022 is my Tower month. This is the Tower from the beautiful Terra Volatile deck, the 3rd edition. Literally, the Tower was the card that I picked at the beginning of the year in my Wheel of Life spread for July, but July's in general, the middle of the year, and in good tarot fashion, that middle point that, denoted by the 5, the number 5 in tarot, that middle point is always a doozy, right? Like, things happen at the middle, at least for me. So July tends to be a time that is very towery, where things that I hold on high crumble down to the ground, where ways in which I've built up my identity, my sense of who I am, of what my world is, where that crashes down. And I have come to rely is a strange word, because this is never fun, but I have come to trust what I call the grace of cataclysm, and in fact, that's so true about the Tower, that it is a card that depicts a kind of grace, that depicts a kind of enlightenment, a kind of ignition. Light comes in. And that often doesn't feel, almost never does that feel really good. When the energy really starts to move, it's not a comfortable feeling, folks, but that's not a bad thing. Anyway, so I've been exploring the Tower, and I've been inviting people in the Mindful Tarot community to spend this month exploring hashtag the places that scare you. And the tarot is so good for exploring the tricky and the difficult places. Now, for some of us, that means exploring what this card denotes, the Tower, and using it as a significator in our readings. And by significator, the way I use that word is to talk about having a specific card in mind that we place in the deck, we shuffle the deck, and then we uncover the deck one card at a time until we hit the significator card, and we either pick what's above it or what's below it, or perhaps both, and do a 2-card reading. So for some people, exploring the places that scare you this month has meant using the Tower as their significator card, but I invite you also to use any card that is stalking you, that seems to embody a kind of archetypal richness for you, that invites you into that tender place in your heart, in your life, that tender place that needs to be kind of cracked open a bit, needs to be touched, understood, seen, and released, or what's in it released. To use any card that you like to explore what is tender and achy, what's in need of ignition and enlightenment. Now, the method of revolving the cards is a way to keep exploring one reading to the next, whatever comes up. So, quite literally, this is a method working with daily reading. So yesterday, the 2 cards that I picked in my Tower spread were cards around the significator from the day before. It was a significator because it was a card I didn't understand, the 8 of Swords. So I picked the 9 of Coins and the Fool. And I did a Roots and Canopy spread with these cards. So I thought about the ways in which this might be at the root for me. This was yesterday. and how that might open up into the Fool. Now, this was an interesting reading for me, and it left me wondering about this guy. It left me wondering about the Nine of Coins, the Nine of Pentacles, which is a card that I've often had some difficulty with. You know, it's a card that often has a very positive connotation, like all the nines in the minor arcana. It means a certain kind of culmination of a sort of inward journey of that suit. It's where the suit's energy comes to a head, but in terms of the self, in terms of what's right here. And then the 10 takes us sort of out of the self, sort of transcends the energy of the suit. So it's a kind of inner culmination. And if you think about the Nine of Pentacles in the traditional Waite-Smith imagery, where you have this lady in a walled garden and she has a falcon and the falcon is hooded. On the one hand, that's a card that denotes like, I've arrived. I have completed what I needed to complete, and now I can reap the benefits of my endeavors in this garden of delights. And I have this falcon, and the falcon symbolizes my ability to bring back from the outside world, to have this bird hunt for me and bring back to me what I need. I have arrived. But the hooded nature of the falcon, of course, that's the thing about the art of falconry, at least traditionally, that, you know, you put the hood on the bird to keep it from hunting, and then you can take the hood off and send it out. That hooded bird has a kind of shadowy connotation to it. Like, what do we need to shut out in order to enjoy the garden of the self? How are we isolated? And it's that isolated and sort of enclosed sense of the Nine of Pentacles that has always given me pause. And in fact, the artists behind the Terra Volatile talk about this character and talk about the kind of loneliness and isolation that she experiences. Here she is in the lap of luxury and self-fulfillment, but there's something lonely and isolated about her. I want to understand more deeply that that kind of difficulty of solitude. I have literally spent the last week alone, or all but alone, because my husband and the dogs, they're on the coast. I was going to join him, but I'm sick. He's sick too, but we're sick in separate places right now. And I'm here in my house, enjoying my solitude, trying to recover from COVID, and finding, what is it to be in this self without distractions? I mean, this is what, as a meditator, I face every time I sit on the cushion, and God knows it's uncomfortable. So the places that scare me, resting in solitude, in the self, is a kind of scary place. So I'm going to put these cards back in the deck. I'm going to just place them in sort of at random into the deck. Sorry, I dropped one. And I'm going to shuffle. I'm going to try to shuffle well. So sorry, I'm shuffling off screen. My setup here with my camera isn't so awesome. Maybe I'll cut this part because I'm sure it's riveting to see me looking down off screen and to hear the ASMR delight of my riffle shuffle. And I'm going to, after I've shuffled really well, I'm going to do my rotating, my revolving of the card. So what's being revolved here is that I'm taking the card that was pulled yesterday and was of most meaning to me yesterday, and I'm using it as my significator today. I'm still going to be using the Tower as my significator, so I've got two significators for this. I'm going to use the Nine of Pentacles, or coins in this deck, as my root card, and the Tower as my canopy card. And for the root card, because it's the bottom, I'm going to pick what's directly underneath my Nine of Pentacles. And for my Tower card, because it's the top, I'm going to pick the card that's directly above the tower. Now, how you work with a significator, whether you use one significator or two significators, whether you pick what's above or below, this is entirely up to you to make sense of it and meaning of it for you. You can do what I do. You can adjust it. The point here is to make a decision and to be consistent so that you have some method and discipline going into this work. And then to just trust that you've revolved the card that you needed to understand better. So part of the intention of this reading is to understand that root, that Nine of Pentacles, a bit more deeply. What is it about solitude that I need to clarify? What is it about it that I need to touch more deeply? What is it about it that's a little scary, that feels a little wobbly making, that touches what's tender, that needs to be touched? I dropped another card. Okay. So now I'm going to go through my deck one card at a time until I find the Tower and the Nine of Pentacles. And it's a big deck, the Tarot Volatile. I found the Nine of Pentacles. Okay, here it is. I'm taking the card that was underneath it. And it is Temperance, upside down. So I'm going to keep that in mind, because at the end of this, I'm also going to pick a clarifying card for Temperance. And I'm going to keep drawing until I reach the Tower. Okay, I found the Tower, and it's reversed, but I don't really care about that. And I'm picking the card that was right before the Tower, which interestingly is the Nine of Cups. That is fascinating. Okay, so I have now my two cards, Temperance and the Nine of Cups, and I still need a clarifier for Temperance. I'm going to pick the very next card as my clarifier, and it is the King of Wands. Okay, so here's my reading. My root, Temperance, reversed. But let's take a good look at the Temperance card. It's really beautiful in this deck. And my canopy, the Nine of Cups. So what is it about the Nine of Pentacles, right? What is it that I'm trying to anchor in? And I had the Two of Pentacles come up in a reading the other day with a different deck, actually, with the Lonely Dreamer. And that's a really beautiful Two of Pentacles. It's got an angel holding the two coins aloft and the wings of the angel. And it made me realize, like the angel and Temperance, it made me realize like the balance, that kind of active work of balancing and equilibrium making and finding my way with all of the competing qualities of heart and mind, that requires the lift of faith, allowing myself to be held by the angelic, the sacred. Temperance is a card that I always relate to my spiritual practice, to the work of practice, the discipline, if you will, of turning toward the sacred, of, literally sitting, for me, because I'm a Zen Buddhist, literally sitting on my cushion and meditating, but it's also that kind of willingness to give it up to the universe, give it up to deity, to the sacred, to the divine in us, to be held, to be supported. But this was reversed. And the King of Wands there, what is making it hard for me to give things up is my own air of fire, this kind of expansiveness of my own kind of like that burning to respond to the world, to be engaged, to be active, to do something, right? And I keep trying to encompass that energy in this life. I keep feeling like the world is literally on fire right now. So much crisis and suffering everywhere. I've got to bring all my leadership energy to it, right? I've got to bring my voice, my heart, my guts, my body. But I fucking have COVID at the moment. And I think that's making it hard to find balance. But this is where I need to root myself, is in the act of that alchemical work of resolving the tension of opposites through the activity of faith and spiritual practice, of actively working to integrate this mishmash of a human soul, not to get rid of any bit of my being, but to integrate, to open into, to soften into all the parts of me. And the way to do that, I already know this, is through spiritual practice, through that active work of turning toward the sacred, of turning toward the places that scare me in my own heart, of not leaving anything out. So I have to find a way to let this guy know that, okay, keep carrying the torch. You're not letting the torch down. You're not letting the world down, but you gotta be held in grace and faith. And that will allow for a kind of ease, that ease of the nines, of being full and fulfilled, of being at peace and at ease, of being in my garden. The Nine of Cups is so close to the Nine of Pentacles. Both have a shadow side. This card can often be like the smug, that Burgermeister of the Waite-Smith deck. But, it's also like, yes, joy, yes, comfort, yes, health and well-being. Blossom into that. Branch out into that. Okay, so this was a demonstration both of, roots and canopies spread and how to work with the places that scare you. And it was also a demonstration of this idea of revolving the card, of taking a card from the previous day that you don't quite yet understand, and using that card as the significator, revolving that card into the next day's reading by actively using it to help you go deeper. And holding that intention, like, what have I still not understood about the Nine of Pentacles? Okay. There we go. That's what I got. As always, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for your practice. It is truly the practice of faith and the practice of this angel. Okay. Blessings all. Toodaloo.